Dr. Sadashivam, and I am so happy and privileged to be considered for this project, and I really wish we get an opportunity to facilitate this project. I would like to share my initial thoughts in terms of how we would like to take this training forward. At the outset, I look at it from three parts. The first is the training identification part, and the second is the content development part, and third is the delivery of training part. Now we are at a very initial stage, and it was a very good meeting with Mamta madam today in the morning with Mimish and Vamika. I would be driving the whole project. And in fact, I wanted to give you a written account of how my approach would be, but since it runs into too many pages, the connect that I would be able to establish with you obviously cannot be done in a document form which runs into some 5 or 7 pages, and that is the purpose of this video, as I had requested you in the telecon in the morning. I went through this design document that Mimish had sent, and it captures one of the essential elements, and it gives me a very good indication in terms of your expectations in terms of how you would like us to take this program forward. And I assure you that we will do a great training program which will be useful for all the participants. So the first part of this training program obviously talks about the conceptual framework. I understand that it's a 2-day training program, and I can see that the first day is focusing on the theoretical programs, and the second day is case studies, presentations, etc., etc. At the outset, it appears to me that this program was initially designed for face-to-face instructor-led training programs, and I'm sure it was designed during the pre-COVID era. Yes, times are changing, and we have some restrictions in terms of keeping pace with the new normal. So not to worry, we will design it in a manner that it's done for a webinar. But any trainer in the world would prefer a face-to-face training program. The trainer is more comfortable. He can interact with the participants. He can watch their emotions. The pedagogy is like that. But considering some of the limitations in the post-corona, obviously that needs to be considered, and we will do a great job because we need to live with the new normal. So the challenge for me right now is how do we bring those elements in a webinar? The second is what we should do in order to connect with the participants better. So the one greatest challenge for me is to make the content interesting, bring in some real world examples, and then ensure that participants really enjoy the program and really add value to them. So these are some of the things that I will be keeping in mind as I develop and facilitate this program. So all that will be in the top of my mind. So coming back to the specific content, initially we are talking of the conceptual framework. So when we talk about the conceptual overview, we are going to talk about the history, how in the past people have transgressed their position, and also giving it a kind of a storyline. The concept of vigilance is not new. In fact, Chanakya, in his literary work Arthashastra, he has talked a lot about vigilance and some of the measures to prevent that, to stop transgression of powers in their efforts towards a perfect state administration. We will make a storyline like this, and then we will touch upon classical, medieval, and modern day philosophers. Now, as we talk about the management philosophers, some certain names that comes to my mind is Henry Fayol. In fact, Henry Fayol talks about all aspects of vigilance in a much greater detail. He talks about punitive vigilance, preventive vigilance, participative vigilance, etc., etc. In fact, Fayol considers each of these as a management tool, very much like your 4 pillars of leadership, like planning, directing, organizing, controlling, etc., etc. We will be bringing all these storylines so as to build a strong foundation for the training program. First day, obviously, we will have PPTs, information dissemination, etc., etc. So that will, the whole day will be on, first day will be full of theories, and second day will probably be a lot of practical exercises. I would like to explain some important aspects that we will consider in the program. The first is the cognitive aspect, and second is the behavioral. Typically, when you talk about cognitive, it is information dissemination, and secondly, the behavioral part. In the sense, we would lead all this, we expect all this to change in a lead in a change in behavior of the participants. We don't want them to become knowledgeable people, but we want people to assimilate this knowledge, sensitize some of these points, and then change their own behavior and also change the behavior with others, their peer groups. We're talking all the 3 aspects of it: the punitive, preventive, and the participation. Therefore, participation from all stakeholders is extremely necessary. So I think these things will take the major portion of the first day. That will be more of an instructor facilitated training program, a little bit of theory, okay, but of course interactions will be there. But the first day will be full of theory, instructor led lectures, etc., etc. That's the pedagogy I have in mind. So once that is done, then we are coming to the second day, which is the very important portion. That's about the e-government marketplace. Very, very important aspect. Especially we have seen how this particular department has progressed in the last 4 or 5 years. I've interacted with lots and lots of people in the government e-marketplace, and how much of developments they have created in the government e-marketplace. Lots and lots of challenges, and they had surmounted all these challenges in a very nice manner. In fact, I have been tracking this department for the last 4 years, and the kind of improvement. And today, I think it's handling money worth thousands and thousands of codes. Okay, so we will have a small session on government e-marketplace, because that's very important for a public sector undertaking, and it is also one of the mandatory requirements of the Bureau of Public Enterprises. Okay, the second, of course, we will also have a topic on audit, etc., etc. And so typically when you talk about audit, participants need to understand what audit is. There are lots and lots of people who have done the audit themselves, or in some cases they might have been subjected to such audits. But nevertheless, every employee in the organization needs to understand what audit is, why it is important, and what is their role in the whole process. And of course, certain cases will be done. I will be doing some sessions on this. In fact, I researched a lot from audits around the world. First is from Italy, a very interesting case study which I would like to share with you. And the second is something that happened in the United States. That's about coffee growers. That's about the participative vigilance. It's about the coffee growers. It's a very good case study that will give you a foundation for group exercises, etc., etc. It will give you a very initial understanding of what audit is, and they are expected to assimilate some of these elements and using them in their own presentations the next day. After that, what we will do is we will take up one of those case studies. By the way, I also have another case studies of a coal mine in Australia. In fact, I used that case study when I did a program for BMW in Muscat. I'll try to get hold of that case study. If I get that, that will be great. Of course, we also have lots and lots of cases in India, because in India, if you talk about some good case studies about preventive vigilance, some organization come to my mind. Indian Railways, anywhere in the country, anything about preventive vigilance is discussed, railway is taken up. So I would like to take up one case study about railways, so that people are able to connect themselves in this particular case, because you are also part of the Ministry of Railways, and participants can connect themselves very well with this case study and incorporate some of the aspects of it which they can use in their presentations the next day. You will surely see the quality in the final outcome, and I will ensure that the participants bring out that quality, especially about the Indian Railways. What are those aspects, how we will approach, how the participants have understood that, and how the participants will use them in their presentations. And for this, we will be using certain problem solving methods. I would expect the participants to use these tools when they come up with their presentations. So little bit of introduction about those problem solving approach will also be discussed. So at the outset, we will be talking about some tools like 5W1H, which is what, when, how, and finally why those the one. The second is we can also use the root cause analysis. You can attribute the causes, whether it is man, whether it is method, whether it is material, whether it is machine. So we will provide that framework for participants to use this framework when they do these presentations, so that presentation is of a little higher quality and they also understand the whole thing well. So when we do those case studies, it will provide them certain indications in terms of how they should prepare the PPT and how they should present the PPT. So this format and template in terms of how they should introduce the topic, why is there a need for that, and then they will use those problem solving tools to solve some of those existing problems. They can select any one of those tools, and once they do that from their own experiences, they have to take in certain experiences. They can say these are some of the challenges that we have, and then they have to suggest some solutions. But the issue is, as you go on solving these problems, surmounting these problems, new problems come up. These are all part of life, part of any official life. So they have to surmount all that, and all that should come in the presentation. Then we will be using a model which is called as a GROW model. G stands for goal, R stands for reality, O is option, and then W is the way forward. So typically G is the goal. In this case, corruption-free country is our goal. Corrupt-free organization in this case. Whatever organization. In your case, it is Corridor Corporation. So the second is, everybody has big ambitions. We all would like to live in an utopian world. The practical situations are different. Reality is different. When you typically talk about a reality, the policies, procedures may not be clear, the peers may not cooperate, there will be resistance from people under you, there will be resistance from your bosses who will say, why are you doing this, why are you over smart? All that happens in organization. That is the reality. So obviously one is to leave everything and say lazy is fair. Why worry about it? Let things go on. Something like Ram ke bharosa chhod dete the. Like it often happens, but that's not the way we work. We are talking of participative vigilance. All of us have a role in the preventive vigilance. So what do we do? Look at some of options. So as they do the presentation, they will also say that these are some of the challenges that we are expecting, and then they will put up those options. And once those options are given, they will select the best of those options and say, this is what is the way forward. I think this will bring in the right vibrations in the training session, because all are senior officers, manager level people, and it's my understanding that they will get to know, because all managers are facing similar problems, whether it is your company or any corporation. Okay. So at the end of the day, as we have discussed in the agenda, we will provide certain topics for all of these people. Separate topics. We have a list of some 10-15 topics, talking from e-procurement, audit, whistleblowers, ethics, technology, e-governance, conduct rules, right to information, complaint handling, transgression of powers. All these things happen in organizations, and therefore vigilance is important. So these are some of the topics that I've selected, and each group will be provided one or two topics based on their own convenience. Let them select the topic themselves and then come and present. So I think it's all set, and I will put my mind in terms of how we can develop more content on whatever we have discussed. So the guys will take up one of these. They will use that particular tool that we had discussed, the problem solving tools, and the broad framework where we will be using this GROW model, where they will set the goal in mind. What is the goal they would like to accomplish? For example, I would like to once again mention those subjects, because they are extremely important, because I don't want to make it as a training program where the trainer, that is me, coming and giving big lectures in terms of what needs to be done, etc., etc. People don't find that interesting anymore. So my whole objective is to give the theoretical framework through a lecture mode during the initial stages, and then give them this. I think that's my approach. And if you have any view on this in terms of how I should take it forward, we are more than willing to take your inputs and then incorporate that into the content that we will be making. So some of those topics I would like to once again say, 1, 2, 3, 4. These have been taken from the template. Procurement, e-procurement, government e-marketplace. But I think of course there are challenges associated with that also. We can use that. Government e-marketplace, audit, whistleblower, ethics and integrity is very important. Technology, e-governance, conduct rules, RTI, complaint handling, and transgression of powers. So I think broadly we have set the stage. So typically the first day it will be on the conceptual framework, the history of preventive vigilance, and then we will also be talking about how it has evolved since the medieval ages to the modern ages, and to the from the classical to medieval to modern. And in the modern age, we will be talking about some of the management gurus who have talked about preventive vigilance, etc., etc. And that's how we would like to end the first day. And the second day will be some case studies, which I said, one from Italy and one from US and one from Australia. Depending on the time availability, I will either select one of these three or probably all the three, and just covering the broad aspects of that. And then of course the remaining time will be given for participants to come out with their own experiences pertaining to vigilance in their respective departments and divisions. And of course on the third day we will be talking about certain aspects of theoretical aspects of procurement, audit, whistleblower, any right to information. Your conduct rules are important. And I think there is a film on vigilance which is created by the Bureau of Public Sector Enterprises. We will film that also, very interesting film where people also can get that. We can keep that for the third day. And then on the final day, we will give all these topics. The groups will select one of these topics and make a presentation. Of course, on the third day, we will also be covering some of these problem solving tools. Maybe not much, maybe for half an hour. 10 minutes for each of these problem solving tools, so that they understand what these tools are. Instead of, my past experience has been that whenever you ask participants to come with a presentation, generally they are not structured. They come, speak something and go away. As a result of which, neither they are able to assimilate the content better, nor the other participants. But once we give this framework for them and a specific template for presentation in terms of what is it they would like to present, and what is the introduction of that topic, and what has been their experience in their own departments, and then what is their goal. Of course, we talked about the GROW model. What is their goal? Second is what is the reality in hand, some of the practical aspects and the options available, and then the way forward. So in this, they will use those problem solving tools. Either they can use the root cause analysis, or they can use the fishbone diagram for it, or we will also use a model called as 5W and 1H. There are some hundreds of problem solving tools available, but looking at limitations of time, we will, I think, limit it to 3 numbers. And then this will be the 4th day. On the 4th day, I will try to have another panel member with me, that is Dr. Balraj. Will be along with me as a panel member, and we will have panel discussions in terms of how vigilance has evolved, etc., etc., and then we will allow the participants also to participate. Very important aspect which I missed in this presentation: when guys are doing their presentations, we will have breakout rooms. They can be created in the webinar itself. So each one will be assigned to one specific group, and whatever they do, it will be in the form of a group activity. So the overall pedagogy I have planned like this, but I am sure by virtue of your experience of having done this kind of programs in your organization, because every organization has its own style in terms of organizing these kind of training programs. Since you mentioned during the start of the telecom that you have already done one such program for your corporate office, based on that experience, if you can give me any more inputs that we should consider while developing the content or while delivering this training program, we would like to hear from you. That's it, and I'm expecting to receive a feedback from you so that I can put my guys on the content development job. Thank you, and we are very, very eager to meet up with you in this training program. Thank you. Jai Hind.